Okay, so we have already explored these 4 types of light that we can find here in the Enscape Objects window, but there is another way of working with light, which is through self-illuminated materials. So we can also produce light effects based in materials that are applied to the objects in our scene, and this can be very helpful to simulate specific kinds of lighting. We can use this method, for example, to produce neon light effects, or to simulate situations where the objects appear to be self-illuminated and they produce a kind of light that is related to its form. So there are many situations when we can use self-illuminated materials and the lights are coming from the materials themselves. Okay, so let's see how it works here in our scene, and I will try to use this self-illuminated material here in this object that is placed on our wall, and this can be an interesting situation to try the neon effect. And one way to use this kind of feature would be to click here in our paint bucket tool, and now I can use my Alt key to extract the material that is applied to this object here. So I'll press the Alt key and now I'll click here in this surface. And if I take a look at our materials tab, we have this material number 1 now selected, and we will see in further videos that Enscape has some specific terms that we can use in the name of the materials that automatically produces a specific kind of material effect. So for example, if I basically write here emissive and hit enter, Enscape will turn this material into a self-illuminated material because of this emissive word that I've just typed here. So if we open our Enscape material editor window, clicking up here, and we search for this material that we've just selected, so I can click here, we can see above that the material type is the self-illuminated material. So as we wrote this word here, Enscape automatically changed the material from the generic, which is the common material, and if I choose it once again, I lose my self-illumination, to the self-illuminated material. So of course, basically, we could have just changed here the type, but it's interesting to notice that Enscape has also this feature of tracking some specific words and defining the material type based on these words. So we are working here with this self-illuminated material, and we can change the intensity here in luminance. For example, we can increase and we will have a more intense effect of the light, and we can decrease it just to check it out. We can also change the color and maybe try a different color. I'll try here the green, and you can notice that now we have a different light effect. So it's actually not so hard to transform a normal material to a self-illuminated one, and we can easily change its luminance and color as well. And it's also important to notice that just like the other light features, the final light effect is also related to the visual settings. So I will close here this window and I will open my visual settings. And here in the visual settings, we can of course change the exposure and also the highlights, and this will affect the intensity of the light. And here in the image tab, we have the bloom effect, which controls this glare that is being produced by this self-illumination. So if we increase this parameter, we'll have a stronger glare, and if we decrease it, probably we will make this glare softer and maybe we won't notice anymore. So it's also very important to understand that all these parameters are affecting the self-illumination as well. So I'll just restore the original value and I'll close here this window. And it's also important to be aware that sometimes the self-illumination feature won't produce the exact result that we might expect. So for example, when we want to simulate a stronger light with shadows being cast, we can still use the self-illumination, but maybe we will have to combine it with another type of light. So we can try this out with another light source here in our scene. I will use the self-illumination as well here in this lamp. So I can basically repeat the process. I can, with my paint bucket, extract this object's material, pressing here the Alt key. Okay, so we've selected the material and it's called lamp globe. I can open here my material editor and I can find the material here. I'll click and I can change the type of material to self-illuminated, and we can see the effect right away here. And the result is actually quite nice, but you can notice that this light is not casting any kind of shadow, and it's not actually affecting a lot the surfaces of the room. And we can even turn off the other lights of the scene to examine how this self-illumination is working. So one way to do this quickly is to explore down here the outliner where we have all the groups of our file, and we can check here the light objects by their name. So here we have one light, I'll turn it off. Also here and here and here, and also this one here, and so forth. And this track lighting here is with this strange name. I will also turn it off. And in this way, we can see how the self-illumination material is working without the other lights in the scene. And we can see that the neon effect is very interesting, but this light here is not actually casting any shadow, and I can even increase its value. So I'll open once again the material editor and I can drag this slider to the right, and even increasing the value, we are not getting the shadows that this kind of light source would produce in real world. So I will decrease this value here, and one thing that we could do is actually to position a sphere light, for example, inside this object, and we will have the effect of the sphere light casting shadows, but we will also have the self-illumination material producing this very interesting bloom effect. So I can try this out by creating here a sphere light, and I will click here somewhere around the sphere. We need to click twice, so I click once and then I can choose the location, and I can try to move this light so that it's more or less in the center of the lamp, somewhere here. I think that it's already working. And you can see here that by placing this light inside of the lamp, we have this very strong shadow now appearing, which was not happening before. And we can also notice here in our couch. So many times we can combine normal lights with the self-illumination material to produce interesting light effects. And now we can see that our scene is getting much more interesting. We can, of course, now turn on the other lights. So I will make all the other lights now visible once again. Okay. And now after turning the other lights on, I actually think that this light is a bit strong. So I can decrease its intensity, and we still have the shadows here that I was looking for. So it's quite okay. And I can go on and use the self-illumination feature in other light sources of our scene. So for example, here in our rectangular light, we found a bit odd that we didn't have any self-illumination, so we can fix this now. I can actually use the same material that we've just applied. I can select it once again here, and I can apply to our light. So basically I need to select this inner surface. We can hide our light here if we like. So I can click, and once again in the outliner I can turn off its visibility to make it easier the selection. And now I can double click this group and I can click this face. And with my paint bucket tool, I will basically apply the material to the surface, and you can see that automatically we have the self-illumination effect going on. And I can do the same procedure with this built-in spot here on the other side of our room. So now I can basically turn all the lights on and we have the final result. And here I need to apply the self-illumination material. So I will hit the S key to leave this group. I will now try to find a better angle here. And we noticed in the previous videos that it was really strange that we had a light working here, but we didn't have any kind of self-illumination. So now I can basically select this group, I can double click, and then I can double click once more till I can select this surface, and I will apply the material. And of course the final result now is much more interesting because now the light fixture is not dark. Okay, so we can see that it's working in both components. And actually now I've basically applied the self-illumination material to all the light sources that I needed, and I can finish this sequence of videos about artificial lighting by rendering a final image. We basically need to make some final adjustments, and we actually have already a view that was previously created, so I can basically double click here in this scene, and I can also turn on my save frame, and here I can synchronize my views. So here we have this final angle that we can render our image, and to make the final edition here I can open our visual settings, and here we can play around with the parameters. We could change the exposure so the image gets brighter or darker. We can control the highlights and the shadows. We can change the saturation, the bloom effect, the vignette. So feel free to change the parameters that you consider to be more important. But it's very important to remember that we have a specific parameter that controls all the artificial light, which is this one here called artificial light brightness. And here it's very interesting because we can increase the intensity of all the lights at the same time, and we can also decrease it. So if we drag this slider all the way to the left, we won't have any artificial light anymore, and we can just see the self-illumination effect. So this is a very important parameter that can help us controlling the final light intensity. Okay, so the most important parameter here would be the rendering quality. So here in the main tab I will increase it to the best quality possible, and now I can basically hit the screenshot button. I can now save this image somewhere in my computer. I will use the JPEG image once again, and I will call this file artificial lighting simulation. Okay, and I'll save it. And then just after a few seconds, we have our final image, which is a room with different light sources, and we've learned how to configure different light behaviors.